If you like a lot of football on your podcasts, then hold and give everybody. Oh, how we laughed. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to episode 7 of the Hold and Give Football podcast with myself, Ross Tweddell, joined by Jack Atkins, who looks impeccable as always. Where'd you buy those hats?
From various places. It's just to cover my unshaven head. I feel a bit rough today, so he's wearing a hat.
He is wearing a hat. That's the big breaking news on the football podcast today. But did you know, Jack Atkins, that Stefan Schwarz had a clause in his contract when he signed for Sunderland in 1999 that stated if he ever went to space, that his contract would instantly be terminated? Sunderland ended negotiations with Valencia and then paid a then club record of $3.75 million for his services, having insisted that the contract would be voided if he left the atmosphere. One of Schwarz's advisors had got a ticket for a planned commercial flight that was due to leave in 2002, and was Sunderland keen to avoid any debate, had their player nabbed a seat of his own. So apparently he wanted to go to space. They thought, oh my god, he might do that and die. Let's just put this in the contract just in case. Want to hear about the potential trip to space? Sunderland manager Peter Reiden's massive monkey's head said he was confused, to say the least, but not overly bothered about the blocking of the trip, with the club choosing to intervene. Speaking to 1990s football podcast, quickly, Kevin, will he score? Reid recalled hearing the space plan and said, you know what? And he said, well, if I can get up on the moon and in space, blah, blah, blah. I was just thinking he's taking the P155 here, but I was desperate to sign him, so I said, yeah, go ahead. It's a very scouse. I can't do that very well. Give me one of those, please.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
That's what I'm talking about. Just in case you're wondering, Svart spent 4 seasons at Sunderland in total without leaving the planet and had nothing but good things to say about his period at the Stadium of Light. There must be a compilation out there of the most weird clauses in contracts, and that's got to be close to the top of them.
Yeah, I can imagine as well, things are only going to get weirder, but probably more under lock and key, if you know what I mean, just because the way people are media trained and they don't want things leaking and all this kind of stuff. There's probably some wild stuff in these player contracts. The Stefan Schwarz things reminded me, one of my mates is an architect, and when he was studying in Liverpool, one of his tutors years ago, I think it was for a very young Jamie Carragher maybe, designed a house for him. A full thing, fully voice controlled, all this kind of stuff, way ahead of its time. We're talking in the 90s. And apparently Carragher's dad looked at the plans and said, my son is not living in an effing spaceship. And saw them up. So, yeah.
I saw it.
He could have had a mate on his flight there. But...
You know the overlap, the thing that Gary Neville and Carragher and Roy Keane do on the YouTubes at the minute? I watched the latest episode of that yesterday, where there's a mural of Carragher in, I've forgotten the name of the place there where Carragher's from. You know where he's got the big mural on the wall of the kid in the Everton shirt turned into a Champions League winner, that sort of thing. They unveiled a Gary Neville one right next to it.
Really?
And they mentioned it. I can't remember if it was Carragher having, I think it might have been Neville having a swimming pool built by Scousers and then putting a Liverpool scarf underneath the swimming pool. I think I've got that the right way around. Just quickly mention that, so I thought that's why you were going with some maybe Evertonian builder inserting something Liverpool-wise into Jamie Carragher's spaceship.
No, I'd forgotten that about Gary Neville's swimming pool as well. Because is it Neville or is it Scholes who's got a house that looks like the Teletubbies home?
That's Neville, yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Scholes just likes sucking toes, doesn't he?
He does, whereas Neville apparently likes Tubby Toast and Tubby Custard.
Newt. Is that the thing the vacuum used to say? I've forgotten his name.
Nunu.
Yeah. Former Spurs manager, of course. Yeah. Just before we came on here today, I've found a news story which I found astonishing, and Lionel Messi's contract has been revealed by the MLS Inter Miami's co-owner, George Mas. And I want to read it out because this is amazing. Speaking to Spanish outlet El País, I might have said that completely wrong, Mas has revealed that Messi will earn between $50 million and $60 million per season into Miami, which is considered way less than what was offered by the Saudi Arabian clubs, which are apparently interested in Lionel Messi's services before he went over to the MLS. I had a quick Google what the Saudi Arabians were offering. 550 million euros is what I found. So he's taken a big pay cut there, so fair play to Lionel Messi. Messi will also receive, this is on top of the 50 to 60 million per season, he'll also receive shares in Inter Miami once he retires, so he's set up for his retirement. He'll also get a cut of the MLS global rights broadcast on Apple TV and of the club's Adidas kit. Mas said, I spent 3 years working on a deal, a year and a half very intensively. My conversation with his father, George, I got it done at the end of May. David Beckham talked with Leo only about soccer issues because he was playing. I didn't want him to feel pressured. But imagine, not only $50 to $60 million, but also shares in the club, stuff from Apple TV, kit sales, which I assume is going to be like the most bought kit maybe in the history of MLS soccer, you probably would imagine. Yeah. He's got everything. It's disgusting.
Jeez. I was on Instagram the other day, and there was apparently pictures of what his penthouse in Miami's like, and it's ridiculous. It's got a lift for the car. It's got its own private pool on a balcony. Oh, stuff which sounds probably pedestrian to the super rich, but to me and you, fantastic.
I bet there's a Real Madrid scarf underneath that pool, though.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Just before we came on the air as well, Arsenal have now reached a full agreement with Ajax to sign defender Jurien Timber. The Gunners had seen an initial offer in the region of €42 million, with 5 million add-ons accepted by Ajax last week, despite the Eredivisie side being keen to go around to €60 million. I'm going to have to apologise for my voice today. We had a long trip to London, and I haven't recovered yet. With the final details on personal times that the players now agreed to, the talented defender is set to undergo a medical before the weekend. Sources have confirmed that Timber's medical could be even before Declan Rice's, with the England star set to undergo his on Friday. This was someone that Man United was heavily linked with last summer because obviously Erik ten Hag was Ajax manager, worked with him. He appears to tick all the boxes for an Arsenal defender though. Versatile, pacey-ish, good on the ball. Seems like a nice signing.
Yeah, Arsenal splashing the cash as well, because obviously for years they always said, we're still paying off the Emirates. We can't really throw as much in the squad as we can. But it seems like their run last year has convinced the owners to properly invest. And yeah, that's a really good signing. Liverpool were linked with him, but I think we've just been linked with everyone, as Newcastle probably have as well. But yeah, really good signing. I would be surprised if his medical will be before Declan Rice's, because I'd have assumed that the, may have sneakily had some preliminary stuff done already, but apparently not.
Just the masseuses rubbing in Muller's rice corners into his thigh. I can feel those. I can feel those muscles are nice and loose there, Declan. I don't know what I'm doing now. Anyway, rice pudding's very nice. Manchester United have made an opening offer worth €45 million, which is £38.6 million for Inter Milan goalkeeper Andre Onana. What's his name? This is after David De Gea was apparently made aware of his release on his wedding day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say the obvious link to our day-to-day life, but 38.6 million for proven keeper. That seems quite cheap.
Yeah.
We were saying last week about De Gea, was it 350 grand a week? Was it on the table, or had he requested it?
That's what he wanted, but then they renegotiated with something slightly reduced. But then De Gea signed the contract, but the club pulled out.
Yeah, I mean, if De Gea ends up leaving, and I do believe that if he ends up leaving, he'll probably also go to Saudi Arabia. But the amount of wages that United will be saving by not even downgrading to Onana, it could be a really, really good bit of business. But it all depends on De Gea.
Yeah, and he's only 27 years of age, is Onana, which I didn't realise. I thought he might be a little bit older than he is, but obviously he's been one of the Champions League standout goalkeepers for, ever since it feels like that Ajax breakout season where they got to the semi-finals against Spurs.
Yeah, when was that?
2019? Yeah.
Like you're saying, 27, not even on paper reached his peak yet. So again, could be a very shrewd bit of business.
And you're speaking of David De Gea, apparently Fenerbahce is where his agents are currently going.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is a really odd move.
Yeah, because usually, no disrespect to the Turkish league, but it's usually those players who are just starting.
Your Daniel Sturridges.
Your Daniel Sturridges. I think Martin Skrtel.
Dali Ali.
Yeah, exactly. Not your players who are absolutely scraping the bottom of the barrel, but they're just on the descent, which you could argue De Gea is, but I still think he's got a couple of good seasons left in him.
Maybe it is just money. Maybe it's just like going abroad to get your hair replaced in Turkey, and that's going to pay David De Gea's wages.
Well, he is a poor man. Remember that time he stole a donut?
David De Gea?
Yeah.
I am not aware of this one.
It was not long after he signed for United, so he was young and stupid, and apparently he got caught shoplifting a donut, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" It's about 60p. So, yeah.
Imagine that, because imagine Anthony Worrell-Thompson might have lived in the Manchester area, because he sounds like he's a Mancunian. I don't know if he is or not, I might just because of the way he sounds. He was stealing cheese, wasn't he? Imagine that double whammy for that security guard back then. The De Gea-Worrell-Thompson combination. I'm sorry if he's... I don't know why Crouch and Defoe came in my head there. Anthony Worrell-Thompson being Peter Crouch is a wonderful thing. Just going like that to pluck the cheese away. Anyway, Manchester United, in related news to them as well, have confirmed the signing of Mason Mount from Chelsea. The England international becomes the Red Devils' first incoming this summer, joining for an initial £55 million that could rise to 60 million if add-ons are met. Chelsea were holding out for that massive 60 million price tag, rejecting 3 bids from Man United before finally agreeing the terms towards the end of last month. Mount departs Chelsea, having made 195 appearances in all competitions, scoring 33 goals and assisting 37. It's all looking good for Mason Mount. But then, as we're sat here on Wednesday the 5th of July, on the 4th of July, up the Americas and all that sort of stuff, he released this farewell video because apparently the Chelsea fans deserve more than a written statement, where he was clearly sat there reading a written statement just off the camera, so they might as well have been written anyway, because it was soulless and it was gutless. And it was also pre-recorded, because he rocked up to Carrington with a different head of hair. He was bleach blonde in his farewell video, but then at Carrington for his medical, it was lovely, lovely brown.
Yeah, and it's like we were saying recently with the whole Jack Grealish thing, the reason that people enjoyed Grealish's celebrations because he felt human again. Yeah. And this is, the counterpoint to it, like you're saying, just a soulless statement. The regular platitudes. Bet if he scores against Chelsea, he won't celebrate, all that kind of stuff. Good move, though. I like Mason Mount. I think he's a really good player. The way I found out that this had actually gone through is I saw Brian Robson was trending online. I was like, oh, what's happened? It's just people just saying, oh, apparently he's the first. I think Mount is the first out-and-out centre mid to have the number 7 shirt since Brian Robson.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, are people trying to compare him? But no, the 7 shirt had become more of a kind of, attacking number.
Your Michael Owens, your Antonio Valencias, that's all the greats of the game.
Of course.
That's a bit harsh on Valencia. He was a very good player. It wasn't his fault that he was picked to replace Ronaldo.
Yeah, and obviously between the Newcastle fan and the Liverpool fan, there's no love lost here for Michael Owen, is there? So.
Well, yeah, exactly. If you're not aware, by the way, Michael Owen just, he didn't play for Newcastle because he was trying to secure his move away from the club, which I guess you could say, from a player's point of view, makes sense. But when that club has paid him 125 grand a week to sit there injured for 3 years, it makes you feel a little bit sick. Is Mason Mount a good signing for Manchester United? You say that he's a very good player. I don't quite understand what he is, but I imagine that I think we said this a few weeks ago now, that managers clearly see something that muggles like me don't see, because Jurgen Klopp, I think, was linked to liking him, and obviously Eric Ten Hag's been gagging for him. 3 offers in before the 4th was accepted. So what does he have that I just don't see?
Well, one of my mates is a big Chelsea fan, and obviously it was ages ago that Liverpool was starting to be linked with him, and we were playing on PlayStations because we're grown children, and we were chatting over that, and he said if Mount leaves, he'd be gutted. He's just a massive fan of him. I know he's to me he's dependable. He's one of those, like the stick that was used to beat Wijnaldum with when he was at Liverpool. If you're not noticing him, he's doing a good job. If you know what I mean. He won't do anything spectacular, but he'll just keep going. He's a bit of an engine, and he'll just keep things ticking over. And then it's when he's out the side that you go, oh crap, yeah, I didn't realise what he did. For that midfield for Man United, though, what's it going to be now? What? Casemiro, Mount, Bruno,
Fred, McTominay.
Yeah.
Now I think McTominay is going to leave, isn't he? I think off the back of this one.
I wouldn't be surprised, but he's an upgrade, yeah. Especially I think with United, Casemiro was fantastic last season, and he seemed to be that missing piece of the puzzle for the stability in their midfield. But I think Mount is just an upgrade on what they've already got, just to try and incrementally build back up.
I think he's a replacement for Eriksen. I don't know what it was, but it felt like maybe Eriksen maybe lost a bit of legs, obviously understandably so towards the end of the season, but it feels like maybe Mount could be put in that. I've just got Muller Rice on the brain now. Whoa, I love an apple one, mate. I don't know about you. When you get to the bottom, you get the bit of apple.
I always like the raspberry ones, and I think they discontinued them because I like them. So that's always happens.
It's always the case, isn't it? Yeah. But speaking of, right, so yeah, Mason Mount's there to replace Eriksen, I think, in the long term. Again, he's a very versatile player, which I think is in his favour. He can play anywhere across that sort of three behind the striker. Yeah. He can play more centrally, as was said there before. Because it was always England, you're always sitting there looking at, more exciting, more... What's the word I'm looking for? More obviously threatening players on the eye. Like your Grealishes and people like that sitting on the bench while Mason Mount's just trundling around the pitch doing nothing. But apparently he takes up good positions out of possession, which is why Gareth Southgate likes him. And I just don't understand why you would pick that over... But it's Gareth Southgate being a negative guy. That's what it all boils back down to. I just don't like Gareth Southgate. I appreciate the success. But I refuse to accept that nobody else could have done better. Keeping Marcus Rashford on the bench against France for that long, sacrilege. Sacre-bleu.
As a card-carrying England fan, then, who do you think could do a better job?
Instead of Mount?
No, instead of Southgate.
Instead of Southgate, insert name here?
Yeah, really?
Insert name here. I don't know who. It's ridiculous just to pluck any name, but I don't know who's in the frame to maybe take over Gareth when this contract's up and he maybe goes away. But I just go back to the 2 times we've been in fantastic positions and the 2 times where we didn't push on. We just continued to sit back. We needed something more pragmatic, I thought. Kevin Keegan, that's exactly who could have done better. We'll score 1 more than you, he says. Anyway, Arsenal and West Ham have ironed out, hey, you like the pun, the finer details on Declan Rice's proposed £105 million transfer. That is £105 million for Declan Rice. Arsenal have agreed to pay West Ham £100 million guaranteed in money, plus £5 million in performance-related add-ons. The 24-year-old's move will break the British transfer record set by Jack Grealish. Back in 2021. Arsenal would pay the vast majority of the fee to West Ham in 3 separate instalments over the course of the next 2 years, something that David Sullivan, the West Ham big boy, David Sullivan, has been pushing. I've knocked myself off there. My goodness me. Right. It's a West Ham big boy. It's David Sullivan. It's something he wants to happen, basically. Rice will undergo his medical on Friday, as we said earlier on. He's going to be signing a contract which makes him one of Arsenal's highest paid players. Just in case you're interested, he made 245 appearances for West Ham and obviously took over the captaincy of the club when Mark Noble retired at the end of the 2022 campaign. It's a massive amount of money, but he ticks a lot of boxes, doesn't he?
Yeah, 24 as well. I had in my head that he was older than that for some reason. Like we're saying, there is the England tax on top of that. But I think Declan Rice is a superb player. He could be that signing that helps them push on. The thing about this signing, and also complementing the signing of Kai Havertz, I'm interested to see how Odegaard will play, because I'd assume he'll become more of that kind of, not deep lying playmaker, but you'd expect Havertz to be further ahead. You've got Rice in that kind of more Makelele role. Odegaard could help facilitate Odegaard kicking on to something different, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very fluid, because you think of Rice, I know primarily he is more defensive player than he is an attacking player, but his ball carrying, I think, is one of his biggest strengths, is getting the ball out of his feet and letting him run at the opposition. It's almost like, I feel stupid saying this, but it's almost like a rugby tactic. You just give the little lad at the back the ball just to run forward so you get your ground back, that sort of stuff. That's what Declan Rice did wonderfully well for West Ham and for England, so I think it's just going to be more fluid. I think there's going to be less defined roles in the Arsenal midfield, and everyone's just going to be going like this, just wee.
Yeah, and I like that style of wee football, as you've just up to there. We're both knackered for different reasons. You're knackered because you've had a big work trip this week and did a lot of work. I ate too much Wagyu beef last night and woke up with a stomachache.
Oh,
it's one of them days.
You bastard! I wish I had the old Wagyu steak.
I burgered it last night, but I woke up this morning and feel like I've been hit by a car. So I've just been sat here struggling all day.
I tell you, that's the thing I've noticed about my 30s, is the digestion of food it's a lot longer process.
Oh God, I've become a peppermint tea before bed guy. That's me now.
What was that meant to aid you? I've got the Yakult in the fridge.
Oh, a bit of this digestive, or are they Alcace and Unitas? I can't remember.
I don't know what you've even just said there. I just know that when I had some food poisoning last year, the doctor was like, yes, just neck some Yakults neck a Yakult every single day to replace the good bacteria in your gut and help your digestive system out a bit.
Yeah, peppermint tea, apparently, similar thing. It just kind of helps digestion if you're feeling a bit bloated and a bit crampy.
Oh, there we go then. You never know what you're talking about on this podcast, do you? Who would have thought it? Brentford. News with Brentford. They've kept Hollywood Bets as their shirt sponsor for next season, or for the next 2 seasons, we should say, because they're one of the few football teams in the world now who use the same home kit for 2 years in a row, like it used to be way back in the day. And I think that's the positive side, to think they're not charging fans like every single season for a brand new kit. But Ivan Toney obviously has been suspended from football for 8 months, whatever it is, for a certain thing, and now he's going to come back from that thing and now promote or be a billboard for the thing he has a massive problem with on his stomach there. So it's a weird one. Why didn't they change? Obviously, because there's the legislation coming in a couple of years' time about betting companies being on the front of Premier League shirt sponsors to begin with, so maybe you'll be thinking that football clubs could be changing out sponsors for something different. But the Ivan Toney situation on top of that as well, it leaves you scratching your head a bit as to what Brentford are doing.
I felt sorry, even though, Toney was silly and he got caught. I did feel sorry for him because it felt like they made an example of him when you said, like, the betting sponsorship on shirts became such a big issue, and certain competitions are sponsored by bet companies, and just the rampant nature of it. I wonder if, like you said, with the legislation coming in, this is again plucked out of thin air, not based on anything. But I wonder if Hollywood Bets kind of said to him, "Look, we'll not sign everybody up, but we'll kind of sweeten the deal if you don't jettison us at the very first sign of trouble," if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's grubby. It's not right. Yeah,
because how is he going to feel when he comes back? Because obviously, you think about hearing about Premier League footballers like that betting on stuff, like, and he got caught obviously as one hand. But I watched that. It was a video that your Pie Face off Twitch. He's a FIFA Twitch streamer.
No, because I'm an old man.
Well, he's a FIFA Twitch streamer who had a bit of a gambling issue a few years ago, and also Paul Merson just sort of, I forget which YouTube channel did, they just did to sort of sit down and talked about their gambling issues. And if you're thinking it's just sort of a case of someone being stupid, watch that video and you come up with a completely different perspective, because it is like a proper like addiction sort of thing, and something that people struggle to get out of, and they have to take these big leaps and big steps to get away from it. So how is he going to feel? Like, obviously going away from the game now for a few months. It could have been longer. And maybe should have been implemented maybe when the season was on. I guess everyone's saying that, aren't they? But he's going to come back from this big lengthy ban. Obviously his England chances have been hampered a bit. Now he's going to come back and be a billboard for the thing that took him away from the game. It's a really odd one.
Yeah, like we seem to say every week, which money talks at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And speaking of that, after saying he wasn't going to Saudi Arabia because he didn't agree with the project or whatever bollocks he came out with, Steven Gerrard has been appointed the manager of Saudi Arabian side Al Attiyah. And I can't say the last bit because YouTube censors will pick it up as a swear word if I say it or Jack Atkins says it. So let's just say Al Attiyah. Up the Al Attiyah. Oh, I don't know if I mean that. Gerrard has been out of work since being sacked by Aston Villa in October 2022, which I think I took this from 90minutes.com, and this is how their paragraph read. With the club precariously placed above the relegation zone, his successor, Unai Emery, led them to a 7th place finish, securing Europa Conference League football. Take that, Steven Gerrard. He was apparently looking to either Leeds or Leicester to come knocking for his services, but they didn't come, so that obviously would have had a little bit of an effect on his decision at this close season, just before the new season starts. El Attiyah finished 7th in the Saudi Pro League last season, 9 points clear of the relegation zone, but a staggering 30 points off the Asian Champions League spots. And he doesn't have any big names in his squad as we're sat here right now, but he does have Sweden forward Robin Quaison and former Napoli winger Amin Younes. The crowd... Hang on. They have Sweden forward Robin Quaison. And Napoli winger Amin Younes. Where's me cheers gone? I swear I had some cheers last week. That's all I've got. I'm sure I had like a way last week, but it's gone. Anyway, he could be working though. This is Steven Gerrard with we'll get on to that actually next. what are your thoughts? Obviously, big Mr. Liverpool man, Steven Gerrard, going over to Saudi Arabia and basically announcing his resignation or retirement from football management by going to the Saudi Pro League.
Yeah, it's what you said. One of the Liverpool channels, I've been watching a lot of Liverpool stuff this week because it's been an exciting week to be a Liverpool fan. We'll come on to that in a minute. But they were saying the same thing as you. It does feel like he said, do you know what? One last roll of the dice. I don't think this is really for me. I'll earn a lot of money. When Gerrard and Carragher both retired, everyone assumed that Gerrard would be the one going to punditry and Carragher would be the one going to management. So when they did the flip of that, it was a bit of a surprise. But Gerrard's not the most charismatic man, but he's a hell of a player, so he'll probably be fine with some kind of punditry role somewhere, unless, you never know, for all the money they're throwing at the Saudi Pro League, could become, the new 2 Bundesliga. Who knows?
You say it's weird how his career has fallen off so quickly after such a strong period at Rangers. Because I've said this before. I remember when Eddie Howe was being linked with the Newcastle job, I was like, nah, I want Gerrard. I like the atmosphere he's created at Rangers. They were playing good, like sort of pragmatic attacking football, if you want. It felt a bit gung-ho at times. He was saying all the right things in the press. I was like, yes, this is the man to lead us out the relegation zone and maybe, up towards the top of bits of the Premier League. It's weird how wrong he can be sometimes in football.
Yeah, because the hope for us, for Liverpool, was because, like you said, we saw him do well at Rangers, and we thought Villa, he'll probably do well there. A couple of years' time, it'll go back to the old boot room style. Klopp ends, Klopp leaves, Gerrard comes in, but now it's just like, oh, that's definitely not happening unless an absolute miracle happens. So it's like you said, it's fallen off a quick cliff. In the space of a season, if that?
Yeah. I mean, you go back to when he started at Villa, it started off quite well, didn't it? But then it really did get bad towards the end. I remember watching them, was it a Monday Night Football when they played away? It might have been Gerrard's last game when they played away at Fulham. I think they got dicked on 3-0 or something like that, and it was just like the Villa players had just gone, I've had enough of this. It's time for him to go. It makes you wonder, though, because obviously you go back to his playing career, and obviously you hear about the Gerrard FA Cup final, his role in the Champions League final. You're thinking like, oh, he's just a natural leader who can make people do things they maybe wouldn't normally do. But that's not translated to his management style.
I don't know who his backroom staff are, because obviously, like I mentioned a minute ago, it was Gerrard and Carragher. Obviously, Gerrard would lead by example, but Carragher would be the one there, screaming and dishing out a telling off if needs be. Perhaps it could be like the old Brian Clough and your man, Peter Taylor.
Peter Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, perhaps it could be one of those situations that, if he had a really dynamic number 2, who knows? But I think this is just me making excuses for Steven Gerrard now because he's Steven Gerrard.
So then, who he doesn't have any sort of big names as we're sat here right now on Wednesday, July the 5th. Could he be adding big names in the form of Jordan Henderson and Philippe Coutinho? Gerrard has been promised funds, apparently, to rebuild the squad, and apparently that was the major sticking point in his first round negotiations and his second round negotiations. He didn't get the Leicester and Leeds jobs. He then was promised more money to spend on players, and that's what apparently got him in there, let alone how much he must be earning himself, which will probably make you sick if you hear that one. Henderson has 2 years left in his current contract at Liverpool, having signed a 4-year deal back in 2021. He's 33 years old, but he made 41 appearances in all competitions last season, which shows he's still very, very important under Jurgen Klopp. Coutinho hasn't really played since Gerrard got the sack at Aston Villa, making just 7 starts in the Premier League all of last season. That's another miraculous drop-off, never mind Gerrard's managerial career. Philippe Coutinho, what he was from Liverpool to Barcelona, then his first year or two in Barcelona, that's a massive drop-off.
Oh, yeah. Well, potentially a future Wunderkind segment, who knows? I don't think Liverpool should or will let Jordan Henderson go. We've already let Milner go, and there was the hopes that Henderson could become our utility man going forward, if you know what I mean. He's still hugely admired by everyone at the club, it seems, and with such an influx of midfield players to Liverpool, you're going to need someone there for that leadership quality. The question amongst Liverpool fans is more around Thiago, because as beautiful as Thiago is with the ball at his feet, we can't guarantee many games from him.
Yeah.
So we've been saying, if a stupid amount of money came in from Saudi Arabia for him, would you let him go? And again, people have been split down the middle. For Coutinho, I mean, last chance saloon's been and gone. I can't get over the shadow of a player he was. Again, I thought the move to Villa for him, like for Gerrard, I thought, oh, he'll just crack on again. This will be a really good signing. And I think it was his first couple of appearances again. It was like, oh yeah, it looks like there's something there. And then, yeah, fell off a cliff. I don't think Emery fancied him either, did he?
No, I told you 7 starts in the league all last season. Apparently that was just less and less and less. As the season went on and Villa went up, you're not going to start putting players back in who were, in the team when Villa were down the bottom, are you? So it looks like his career is going to go to Saudi Arabia because he's thinking about the pay packet he'll be on. This is Coutinho on about now. Who's going to be able to afford that? I can't imagine he must be around about 30, is he? Let me have a quick Google there.
Must be about there, yeah.
Coutinho, Philippe Coutinho, he's 31, 32 next June, so he's just turned 31. He's still got plenty of time left, hasn't he? But the Jordan Henderson situation feels like Gary Speed at Newcastle. When Newcastle sold Gary Speed to Bolton for like 750 grand, he was like 34 years old, and everyone's going, Bolton paying that much for a 34-year-old? And then the next season, that's when Graham Souness came in, and that's when obviously, your boys and your Dyers are fighting with each other. The Brat Packers, they were called. Your Bellamy's, your Genesis, your Brambles, your Dyers, your little toe rags and diamond earrings. That sort of footballer from the early noughties. Apparently, they took over the running of the club basically in the dressing room, and it was because Gary Speed wasn't there to sort them all out that happened. So maybe that's a sort of similar situation for Jordan Henderson at Liverpool. Because while it is, I think it was it that Real Madrid game at home when everyone was like, "Oh, he's finished, he's done. We need to get rid of him now." But I think having him around the place is going to be very valuable. Yeah,
definitely, because there's, like we said the other week when James Milner went, there were still some people who were like, keep him at the club, transition him into a coaching role. Don't be starting him in important games just because of that calming influence, that real leadership qualities, because Henderson's had an up and down relationship with the Liverpool fans ever since he first put on a red shirt. But no, I'd keep him at the club. I'd like to see him retire with us, but like we're saying, as long as we're not relying on him, that's a different question, isn't it?
Yeah, other Liverpool-related news, Roberto Firmino has completed his move to the Saudi Pro League for Al Ahly after his contract expired at Liverpool at the end of last season. He'll link up with former Chelsea goalkeeper Edouard Mendy at Al Ahly, as well as former Swansea City winger Modou Barrow.
What a combination there, the dream team.
Firmino has signed a 3-year deal in Saudi Arabia after being linked with moves to the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona. I sent you the video of his unveiling. He did a no-look contract signature, which I chuckled at in the moment, then remembered where the contract is and how old he is. I think he's only 31, 32, that sort of age. He's got plenty to offer at the top level of the game, but once again, it's that argument that he's completed football. He's won everything there is to win in Europe, just about, for a Premier League team, I should say. So maybe it is time that he just went and enjoyed the final years of his career while earning more money than he would have otherwise.
Yeah, he did a no-look contract sign when he signed his last deal with Liverpool, so we can't even give Al Ahly that. Because you sent me the video after I'd had my lunch today, and like I said, my stomach was a bit peaky. Didn't have my usual breakfast eggs, had a lunch egg instead.
Oh!
Came back and saw that, and I went, "Oh, for God's sake!" Again, it's. If you were in his position and someone's probably handing you a blank check every week, you'd take it, wouldn't you?
You are. You absolutely are. It's sad to see, but you're taking it, aren't you? Anyway, elsewhere in Saudi Arabia-related news, we've got Celtic's Jota, their attacking midfielder, probably their best player, along with little, is it Kyogo up front? I've forgotten his name. I was speaking about him a few weeks ago. Yeah, Kyogo, the striker. Yeah, they're probably one of their two best players. He's gone for a staggering £25 million. It feels weird hearing a transfer from Scottish football for £25 million, but it's happened.
This must be the highest profile one out of Scotland for a very long time.
Because I'm casting my mind back. I'm thinking of Nikica Jelavic going to Everton for £8 or £9 million.
Yeah.
Henrik Larsson obviously went to Barcelona. I think he was a free transfer, maybe. There's got to be something from the last few years. Obviously, Andy Robertson going to Hull, I think, for £3 million. Something like that.
But that's not a headline grabbing, though, is it? 25 million.
Largest SPFL transfers. Let's see what comes up when we search this. Transfer records. The Scottish Premiership. Obviously, Jean-Alain Boumsong. £8 million that cost Newcastle. So, Jota was 20... Well, this is all in euros. So, Jota was 29.10 million euros. Kieran Tierney, 27 million euros. Calvin Bassey went to Ajax for 23 million euros. Obviously, he's only 22 as well. Moussa Dembele went from Celtic to Lyon for 22 million euros. So we've just talked absolute nonsense there.
Again, apologies to our Scottish friends out there for showing our ignorance to the Scottish Premiership.
Hang on. Torre Andre Flo. Will that have been to Chelsea in 2001? No,
Yeah.
No, he was late. Sunderland for 18 million euros.
Come on, that can't be right.
For the 2000 to 2001 season, was that Sunderland? No.
I'm getting it up now.
Yeah, Chelsea, July the 1st, 2001.
I was about to say.
Then he went to Sunderland for 11 million euros. My goodness me, Torre Andre Flo. Speaking about Anthony Worrell-Thompson being like Peter Crouch, that's like the perfect amalgamation. Just in case you're interested there, Jack Atkins, Virgil van Dijk is 9th on the list at 15.7 million for his move to Southampton. Back in 2015. Wanyama's on there. Nathan Patterson for Everton cost 14 million euros. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, 13.5 million for the 01-02 season at Arsenal. So there has been a fair few big transfers in Scottish football, so we do apologise. But it does... Apologise. Just seeing a big 2.5 there felt a bit weird for Al that he had to pay that much money, but he does seem to be... You get certain players for your Celtic and your Rangers of the world. I feel a bit of a step above what Scottish football is, and he feels like one of those.
Yeah, I'm sure this had been rumoured for a few weeks as well, and the Celtic fans that I've seen online are absolutely gutted because they love him. I'll be interested to see how they reinvest this, but we've already just shown our complete ignorance for the league, so they could sign anyone, we'd be surprised.
It is going to be interesting to see what Bren Dog does, because obviously it felt like Big Ange had his transfer roots in Japan, brought over a lot of sort of the players from that league, and obviously Brendan's now, I don't know what he's going to do. I'll have to see. Joe Allen. Colo Touré at the back again.
Oh, I'd love that.
But by the way, Jota's got a fantastic mullet, so all the credit in the world to him, and all the best in Saudi Arabia, son. And now we go back to Liverpool because they have signed someone this week, and I'm just going to sit back. We'll just say they gave him number 8 shirt. We'll just say that Liverpool triggered the £60 million release clause to lure him away from RB Leipzig, and then I'll just let you talk about him for a bit if you want.
Yeah, Dominic Szoboszlai. This was one that happened very quickly. I will take back some of the criticisms I've had of FSG, Liverpool's owners, because we've not spent as much as we should to try and establish confirm our place at the top of the league. But when we've needed it this summer, I mean, already McAllister and Szoboszlai for what combined about 90 million odd is good business. The number 8 shirt, which wasn't really a thing before Steven Gerrard, but obviously because of Steven Gerrard, it's now a thing. And it's felt like we've had a while since we've had like an out and out proper attacking midfield force. He plays usually more on the right, so there's the potential of a right side of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Dominic Szoboszlai, and Mohamed Salah, which would be very nice. The links to this all seemed to happen in about 36 hours. There was links in the journalists saying, well, Liverpool are looking at him, and we were like, yeah, it's not going to happen. It's like Newcastle are looking at him as well, and we were like, Newcastle will probably sign him. And then before you know it, it was like, it's been triggered. Liverpool, that's going through. He's in town and he's got the shirt on. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play.
I was gutted when I saw this go through, because obviously for the longest time it felt like as a Newcastle fan it was either James Maddison or Mr. Szoboszlai, not both of them. And once we just I don't want to say let Maddison go to Spurs, but it was clear that we just didn't want to pay whatever Leicester were asking for him, which it turns out is around about 45 million, I think, all in, which is a lot less than the 60 million, which is apparently being quoted to Newcastle. I was like, yes, let's get this guy in, let's get him in the centre of midfield, just more advanced maybe than Bruno and Big Joe and Big Sonali, but more on him a bit later on. But yeah, just seeing that one slip through. I don't know if it's either we didn't bother in the end or we just let him slip through the net because we didn't want to pay the release clause, because he seems like a quality footballer. It's the sort of player you want to have rather than not having.
Yeah, he's exciting. He's an exciting player. And like you said, we are in the process of a midfield revamp and rebuild, and yeah, bloody hell, that's one way of doing it. I think for Newcastle, this will be one of those ones that if you have a similar season this season that you did last season, I think you'd have got them. I think just because we're still kind of a bit more of a name than you. We've had this, Liverpool have had this in the past when Alexis Sanchez told us where to go and sign for Arsenal instead. So we've still got that pull working in our favour, but, just take it on the chin. You'll probably sign someone absolutely ridiculous next year.
I don't know. The more the days and weeks go on, and we've just got one through the door so far. It's like it's lovely to see that like the owners are not just going to splash the cash willy-nilly. They're just like, we've got a valuation in mind and we're not going any further than that. It's nice to see. But on the other hand, where it's like you could have had him if we just got it sorted like weeks ago. You could have had him, but we didn't get him. It's just a bit like, oh, I hope he doesn't turn out to be a very good player, which he probably will do. Just in case you didn't know, he's a massive fan of Steven Gerrard. He says it's a great number about the number 8 shit, and a lot of great players have this number. And I also have a tattoo. He said a tattoo from Steven Gerrard, which makes me wonder if Gerrard had the gun out himself, just doing it for him. I don't even remember before, but his English isn't very good at this point, so I'm not going to bother reading the rest of the quote. What the tattoo says is, talent is a blessing from God, but without incredible will and humility, it is worthless. It sounds like a Steven Gerrard quote.
It doesn't sound like something you get as a tattoo, more like something you get, in a little frame on your desk.
Above your bed.
Yeah. But yeah, very, very happy. I was going to ask who Newcastle are linked with, but we'll come on to Newcastle in a minute, so we'll save that.
There's not a lot though, Jack Atkins. That's the thing. There's not a lot. We're getting maybe Livramento from Southampton. That's the big one for like 20 anywhere. Well, depending what we read, anywhere between 25 and 40 million. So, yeah. But outside of that, it's like Sonali through the door, and that's it. But anyway, Barcelona, they're continuing to spend money they don't have. 40 million euros for Atletico Paranaense. I think that's how you say that. We'll see them land teenager Victor Roque, but the Brazil forward will not make the move until January. Roque made his senior debut for Brazil last March, less than a month after turning 18. By then, he'd already had a year with Atletico under his belt, and had previously broken into the first team at Cruzeiro. It's the same club that handed Ronaldo his debut 30 years ago. The big overriding news here is, how can they continue to spend more money?
Are they doing a Chelsea and trying to spread payments out over like 25 years or something?
You'd assume so, because they obviously had lots of financial issues anyway, but now they've got the stadium renovation going on, and they're buying players like Gundogan. Well, I know it's on a free transfer, but it's still a massive outlay, you would imagine, and now getting 40 million euro teenagers in from Brazil.
Yeah. Well, what's I don't know why I'm asking this. It's a rhetorical question because we definitely don't know the answer. I wonder how much like the Spotify deals and like the kind of naming deals the new camp are bringing in, because they must be eking their way out of financial ruin, because surely no one can last this long flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, you would think so, but I'm just looking at their deals they've done so far this summer. Obviously, Gundogan, free transfer. Martinez from Athletic Bilbao is the other one they've got on a free transfer. So this would be the first money they've spent so far this season. On your departures list, you've got Griezmann going back to Atletico for 20 million. You've got Trincao going to Sporting Lisbon for 7 million euros, and you've got Busquets leaving for Miami on a free transfer. And then they've released Samuel Umtiti this week, as well as Jordi Alba. Then you look at last summer, or the arrivals throughout the 2022-2023 campaign, totals of €158 million euros in. Then they recouped 40 million of that. So they're still spending money, but maybe not as much as it feels like.
Well, the names you just mentioned there, that's a hell of a saving on the wage bill there. So I don't know, perhaps they're just restructuring things, and I don't know. We're barely football financial experts, but it's a curious case, Barcelona. I'll leave it at that.
We'll have to see what happens in 2 or 3 years' time. Maybe if something happens with Manchester City's investigation, maybe then pools start to hit the fan.
It almost sounds like you're willing for that to happen there.
I don't know. They're my Spanish team, Barcelona. I'm the reason they were successful from 2004 onwards.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I went on a stadium tour in the summer of 2004. Then miraculously, under the Frank Rijkaard regime, things started happening, and I think that's all down to my presence being there. Chelsea, from one troubled place to another, they've announced the signing of striker Nicholas Jackson from Villarreal. The Senegal striker signed a long-term contract at Stamford Bridge. Shock and horror of it all, it's probably eight years long, while Pochettino's on a 2-year deal with the option of a 3rd year. I can't see what might go wrong if Pochettino's asking the players to do stuff, and the players like, well, my contract's like 4 times the length of yours, pal. Get out the door. Chelsea have agreed to pay Villarreal more than 35 million euros, which is what his release clause, but it's going to be spread out over several instalments. I didn't realise that Bournemouth made an offer or had a deal agreed back in January, but the terms fell through as he failed a medical. After the collapse of the deal, he took more of a starring role at Villarreal in the second half of the season, with 9 of his 12 La Liga goals coming in the final 8 games of the season. This again feels like another example of Chelsea seeing someone's homework and copying it. The fact that, I'll read that again, 9 of his 12 La Liga goals came in the final 8 games of the season. What about before those final 8 games of the season?
It's Chelsea. It's weird that they are making signings when they've clearly got so many players they still need to get out the door. We said before about Mason Mount left, and obviously thingy to Arsenal. I was talking about him. Havertz, there we go. Old man Atkins strikes again. I'd imagine that there's going to be more of a fire sale. This must be just one of those that we saw. Perhaps there must have been other interested parties apart from Bournemouth and gone in for him.
That was the ambulance coming for you. Can you not hear it?
No, I couldn't. That's how old and deaf I'm getting. I have to get one of those horns in my ears like in a Dickens novel.
Hey, get yourself booked in for an ear clean and they'll change your life. What a time that is.
Let's go. Let's tag team it.
Hey, I get mine on the NHS. Up the NHS. Barcelona were apparently also in a direct battle with Real Madrid for Arda Güler. I think I've said that right, the young Turkish lad. But apparently he's going off to Real Madrid instead, the attacking midfielder, who appears to be the dog's bollocks, because I've seen a couple of compilations, therefore I'm a full expert on how this guy plays. He appears to be the second coming of Lionel Messi. I was watching, I think it was Wales versus Turkey, and he hit the bar, and I'm just like, wow, this guy's the best player ever. He's 18 years old as we're sat here right now. He's been capped 4 times by Turkey, made his debut for Fenerbahce in August of 2021. Apparently the move is going to be around 20 million euros. What's your expert opinion on this guy that you've obviously seen a lot play football?
I mean, like you, I am such an expert on Arda Güler from Fenerbahce. I don't know. It just always seems to be these young players. As soon as Madrid or Barcelona have a sniff of it, no one else has got a chance. Perhaps, like you were saying about Fenerbahce being linked with De Gea, I wonder how long that's been in the works, because perhaps they thought, if we've got this 20 million coming in, we can afford to pay him whatever he wants.
For 6 months?
For at least, yeah. But yeah, I can't claim to know much about him, but if you say he's the second coming of Messi, Ross, I'll trust you and your clean ears.
You heard it here first. Newcastle have completed the signing of Sandro Tonali this week. Well, I've not even apparently. They've gone to pick him up from the airport just before we sat down to do this podcast. I follow some people on Twitter who are stood at the training ground going, oh, look, the Newcastle chauffeur car van, Mercedes thingy, has left the training ground to go to the airport because his plane was landing at 4 o'clock. So he's in the country. The deal is around £60 million, which makes him the most expensive Italian of all time, I do believe. Jorginho was up there, but I think Tonali's just pipped him. He signed a contract at St James's Park until 2028, with maybe another year on top of that. He's the ideal Eddie Howe sign. I think we spoke about this a little bit last week. He's all over the shop. He's got a set piece on him. He's a bit nasty when he wants to be. He's the sort of guy who, when Sean Longstaff got injured last season, and Sean Longstaff went out the team, and we had to drop Bruno deeper and drop Joe Linton deeper and stop them doing what they do when they're going forwards, he's the exactly sort of thing we need in that position there. Having Longstaff as the backup for Tonali.
So do you think it is going to be a midfield free then of Tonali, Bruno and Joe Linton?
Yeah, or Joe Willock with him and Joe Linton swapping. That's what we like to do. It's
quite tasty, that, isn't it? On paper, definitely.
Very tasty midfield. But I still think we need more players in the door at Newcastle. Who they are, we've got no idea, as I'm trying to hold in a sneeze while talking. Have you seen any rumours about Newcastle side? Anybody, Jack Atkins?
Not really, just apart from the ones that obviously Liverpool have been linked with as well. I don't know. What would be your ideal window then? With the times left, what are you crying out for?
A left back, a starting left back, because Dan Burn, while he's solid, you're always thinking to yourself, oh, imagine if we had a good left back, how much better this would be. Another centre back, because while Jamal Lascelles, he did very well when he came in against Manchester City away from home last summer, he's just not up to scratch. Say if we're away in the Champions League against someone massive and there's a bit of an injury crisis at the centre of defence, we need someone better. I think we got loosely linked with Mark Gehi from Crystal Palace, but apparently he was going to cost 60 million quid, which we're not going to pay for him. That's never going to happen. So maybe a centre-half from abroad somewhere. In the midfield, I think we need at least one, maybe two wingers, and depending on what Alan St-Maximin does. The more time goes on, the more I think he's just going to go somewhere else, maybe AC Milan or maybe even Saudi Arabia. So it's him and Eddie Howe. I just don't think are made to work together. As harsh as that is, I think Alan St-Maximin's just a guy you just need to leave just to play. I think Steve Bruce had it right when he's just like, if we put 10 people behind the ball and Maxi that way, that's all we need to do. That's all he did, and I think that's where Maxi likes to play. So then, and maybe even a backup striker as well. Just because we like to play Isak on the left, Wilson up front, and then you look outside of those options, and it's a little bit thin, isn't it? A little bit thin.
Yeah.
So maybe we're 4 or 5 away from being all right for the season.
Like we were saying then, though, on paper, you've got a good squad, and like you said, the wonders Eddie Howe's done with it already. You'll be fine. Yeah. Even if you brought no one else in, it'd be a bit of a disaster, but you'd be more than fine.
I'm just looking there, Harvey Barnes. Underrated Harvey Barnes from our underrated Premier League 11 of the season for last campaign is getting linked to Newcastle now. Even stronger now that Maddison's gone to Tottenham.
I mean, how much do you reckon you get him for, though?
It's going to be 40, 50 million quid, isn't it? Something like that, because he's English.
Yeah.
The dirty English tax.
English tax, it's Leicester don't want to sell tax, and it's Newcastle minted tax, so yeah.
Up the taxes. Ruben Loftus-Cheek has gone to AC Milan from Chelsea for somewhere in the region of £18 million on a 4-year contract. 155 appearances for Chelsea in all competitions, and I struggle to believe that's a thing that's actually true. I know he was there for a long time. I tell you what, I was on work experience at the Shields Gazette in my final year of uni, the 2013-2014 season, and as part of that 2-week stint, I had to go and report. I interviewed Pardew in the daytime, which was nice, with Miles Starforth, the reporter. And then I had to go to a youth game on the evening where Ruben Loftus-Cheek was playing. And Ruben Loftus-Cheek in 2014, it would have been, was the size Ruben Loftus-Cheek is now, playing with under 18s, whatever it would have been back then. And it was a sight to see. But it is weird to see how his career didn't kick on, because obviously he was earmarked, as some players always are, like the next big thing for English football. But he's never really nailed down a place, has he? He's not. I don't know if he's a centre midfielder? Is he a right midfielder? Is he a holding midfielder? Is he an attack midfielder? He just seems to be used as and when Chelsea have needed him over the past however many years he's been there.
Yeah, I mean, he seems part of the furniture. Like you said, there was a lot of talk about him as he was coming up. Like you said, the exciting young British talent, but different kind of player. But it reminds me of like when Chelsea had John McKell Obi. I know his name switched around at some point. But I can't remember seeing him play, if you know what I mean. He never stood out, and he was there for so long. Like he said, 155 appearances for Loftus-Cheek. That's mental. You
divide that by 10, because I was watching him in the youth team in 2014. That's a decent haul. I don't know what. Yeah, definitely. Especially when he's had a couple of loan stints, like I think Crystal Palace was one and Fulham was another one. I'm sure there's more on top of that as well with it being Chelsea. But yeah, he's 27 years of age now. Fair play to his agent for getting him to move to, the team that got to the semi-finals of the Champions League last season. Obviously, he'll be out there with Tomori now, who... It staggers me that he doesn't get more of a look in for England, just how good he is. He won Serie A for goodness sake, but Gareth won't pick him because it's Club England, can't drop Maguire. So we'll have to see how he does out there, but I think his England career's over now that he's gone there, just because Gareth Southgate is the way he is.
I mean, like you're saying, it's £18 million as well. Me being like a bit sly, just like, that's probably broken the Italian transfer record because they're all quite tight these days. Even though, back in the glory days of Serie A in the 90s and early 2000s, they were splashing the cash.
Most expensive, and we're going for it.
The There'll be loads, but
transfer records, Serie A. Here we go. Are you ready? A little shock as to who's top. Cristiano Ronaldo, 117 million euros. Then Lukaku was 113 million euros. Paul Pogba was 105 million. I think that's when he went to Man United. Yeah, 16-17. Gonzalo Higuain to Juventus, 90 million euros.
Really?
16-17, yeah. De Ligt in 1920 going to Juventus was 85.5 million euros. Vlahovic was 81.6 when he went to Juventus. Arthur Melo.
Yeah.
80.6. So they're all like in the last. Well, you go back to 2016, so the last 7 odd years, whatever it is.
I mean, outside of Juventus, it seems.
Yeah, but then you go back to the 01-02 campaign when a certain Zinedine Zidane joined Real Madrid for 77.5 million euros. So there was a fairly big drought there for the Serie A clubs in terms of, like, that stupid amount of money range.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing you were saying about Arthur Melo as well, saying one of the videos I was watching this week about the Szoboszlai signing is that compared to like everything else, the fact that Arthur Melo is still one of the most expensive midfield signings of all time is quite strange. And I think Zidane is still in the top 10 most expensive midfielders or something daft like that. But yeah, that's getting completely away from the point. £18 million, fair play to AC Milan. I've had my pants pulled down by Google once more. But you know when you have like an idea in your head of how the league operates? Yeah, I just in my head I was just like, the Italian teams are all quite cheap these days because they all seem to be absolutely skint. So who knows?
Football passes us by, that's for sure. James Maddison, might as well touch on him as well. 2028, his deal at Spurs runs for. Apparently, there could be add-ons which will make the total deal go to 45 million. Newcastle and other teams were apparently quoted 60 million by Leicester. It's a really, really good signing, especially for Spurs. I think he's a typical Spurs player. If you want, a bit showboaty, bit fancy, nice on the eye. 10 Premier League goals last season and 9 assists in 30 appearances, which is incredible for a team that went down. It's really good signing for Spurs. Is it enough to keep Harry Kane? We don't know as we're sat here.
No, because we were contemplating this recently when we were saying, well, what keeps him? And you'd think if the Spurs board had gone to him and said, look, we're looking at these players, we've actually got some ambitious signings planned. James Maddison does give them a kick up the arse on paper. I can't imagine him not settling well at Tottenham.
Yeah.
And like you said, a good deal all round. 45 million for Leicester. And like you said, if it could reach as much as 60, they're laughing.
I was going to say, it's like Newcastle got quoted 60. We weren't going anywhere near that, and he's gone there for 45. What's wrong with Newcastle? That's a rhetorical question. Don't answer it. I don't want to know. I know what the issues are. But what's wrong with Newcastle? Anyway, that's a good signing for Spurs there. And Ange Postecoglou. Patrick Vieira is back in football management. He's been appointed the new manager of Strasbourg in France on a 3-year contract. He was sacked by Crystal Palace in March, who, by the way, have announced that Hudson is going to be their manager for the upcoming season, playing that sexy, attractive football.
Never say that again.
With
that
what?
Horrible.
Way Lewington is his assistant. I'm going to stop doing that. It's a speech impediment. He can't help it. The Chelsea owners, of course, recently agreed to buy the majority stake in Strasbourg, who finished 15th in the French top flight last season, 5 points above the relegation zone. Could this be a case of maybe a modern? This is going to sound weird to you. A modern day boot room kind of situation where he's taken charge of Strasbourg. Maybe not, because he was manager in New York City, wasn't he, for a period of time, and didn't end up Manchester City manager, so maybe I've just talked myself out of a point there. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, you never know, because he was linked with the Leeds job recently as well. And like you said, it's Strasbourg aren't exactly pulling up trees in the French league, are they? So. No,
but you could see him being there for a couple of years, then go to Chelsea. Because that makes sense, doesn't it? I don't know. Yeah, but he's back in football management, and fair play. Because I don't want to see him fall away as well. Because that Crystal Palace team of, like, not last season, but the season before, was looking quite nice with, Eze and Elise and people like that. And then the goals just stopped going in. Strange.
There was a few teams just last season just kind of, like, plummeted all at once, wasn't there? You had, like, Palace, West Ham, and Leicester just all seemed to go into free fall, and luckily, Palace and West Ham turned it round, but Leicester just kept on.
Yeah, Jose Mourinho news now. He's been reprimanded for his treatment of match officials. A different one to the Europa Conference League, the Europa League final after his stuff with Anthony Taylor, which incited the Roma fans. He's been given a 10-day touchline ban by Serie A. This is on top of the 4-match suspension by UEFA for his aggressive outburst towards Anthony Taylor in the aftermath of the Europa League final defeat to Sevilla. He's now been charged by Serie A for comments made by Roma's following Roma's 1-1 draw against Monza towards the end of last season. This is what he said. "I'm not stupid, you know. Today, I went to the game with a microphone. I recorded everything. From the moment I left the locker room to the moment I returned. I protected myself." This is what Mourinho said after confronting referee Daniele Cifi. What a great name. This is what Mourinho continued on saying. "Hello, I'm Mr. Cifi."
I was letting you go with that one.
He is the worst. This is what Mourinho said about Mr. Cifi. "He is the worst referee I have met in my life. He is the worst. Technically, he's horrible. Zero empathy, zero communication, zero awareness. He is horrible. He makes no human connection with anyone. He has no empathy. He gives a red card to a player who slips because he is exhausted in the 96th minute." So, I don't think he likes him. Mourinho and Roma have also been fined €50,000 by the Italian FA, with the manager set to miss their season opener in August. Now, it's odd when we read the stuff of Mourinho's relationship with certain players, not all the players, because obviously he felt like he was Frank Lampard and John Terry's second dad when he was manager at Chelsea. But then you have examples like the Paul Pogba stuff, and other players said he just treated them like they were poo on the bottom of his shoe. So it's weird to see Mourinho going after someone for being empathetic.
Yeah, this is a debate that's been rumbling on, though. Obviously, Mourinho, I don't think he's ever going to change. I don't think he's ever going to learn. But we should be able to hold referees accountable. He obviously goes too far, and it is good that he has been hit for the stuff with Anthony Taylor, because that was just ugly. But it shouldn't be. He's given his opinions of someone involved in a match, and he's been fined 50 grand for it. I don't know if Daniele Cifi gave a statement himself, but he probably didn't. It's one of them. I'm just always going to contradict myself. Referees should be protected, but they should also be held accountable. How can you have one without the other? That's the thing.
No, but imagine this, if Mourinho was maybe shown an interview with Mr. Cifi before he went on his outburst to the press, maybe that would have calmed him down a bit, and then maybe it's like, if he was like, "This is why I sent that player off," obviously if Mourinho's out there shouting and screaming at Mr. Cifi, going like, "Why have you done this?" he's not going to be able to take in what Cifi said to him, surely.
Yeah, true. He's a hothead.
He needs to cool it down a bit, and also referees need to give post-match interviews. Those two things coming together, I'll never see Mourinho banned again.
See, Ross Tweddell here is my filter. He takes the words from this 75-year-old tired man and puts them in a way that is palatable to our audience. So thank you, Ross. Yes.
I don't know what it is, though, but I can just picture Mr. Cifi in a wheelchair in his 70s just saying, "Cifi, baby," just like he's the Iron Sheik.
I mean, whatever helps you get to sleep at night.
Down the Mourinho, that sort of stuff. Anyway, on to more wholesome football news. Forest Green Rovers have named Hannah Dingley. Dingley ding, dingley dong. I've tried to make a Claudio Ranieri reference there, and it's gone horribly wrong. As their new caretaker boss, making her the first woman to manage a professional men's team in English football. The League Two side, though, this was weird, sacked Duncan Ferguson on Tuesday after just 6 months in charge. And then they announced Dingley, the club's academy head, will put in caretaker charge of the first team. Her first match in charge will be a friendly against Melksham Town on Wednesday. Up the Melksham! I don't know who they are, do you? Nah. She first joined the club back in 2019 to take charge of the academy and remains the only woman to manage a men's football league academy. Dingley was born and raised in Carmarthenshire. Never heard of that before. And also initiated the club's girls' academy, which launched in 2021. She has, crucially, the UEFA Pro licence and previously worked at Burton Albion. She's fully qualified. The only thing I can compare this to is when we were wee nippers back in the day, and we had a woman referee for the first time. And honestly, you go from how you talk to a male referee when you're like 16, going like, "Oh, ref, you're full of this, that, and the other," all the swear words and whatnot. But when a lady was on the pitch, the discipline she had over those boys, it was incredible. So I can only imagine this will work in a similar vein. That's the only sort of rationale I can put into how this will be better than a male manager being in charge. But it's about time, because how Emma Hayes hasn't made the jump yet, I don't know.
No, and I mean, if any team were going to be the first to make a progressive move like this, it was going to be Forest Green Rovers, wasn't it? I didn't realise how badly Ferguson was doing there, because when he was signed, I thought, oh, this would be good for all involved, but he pooed the bed. I've not got the numbers here, but they didn't make for good reading.
Keep going, Jack. I'll get them. Duncan Ferguson.
Obviously, Forest Green Rovers, if you're not aware of them, very progressive team. I think a vegan diet for all the players. They're
gonna have a wooden stadium, aren't they, soon?
Yeah, they're just the kind of the goodies of football. So if Dingley is in the top 4 leagues of English football, first female boss of the men's game. Fine. Just judge her on her performances and her style rather than who she is. Exactly,
Jack Atkins. Duncan Ferguson, I thought, had done well as Everton's interim manager. 5 games in total over his 2 stints. One was in 2019, one was in 2022. 1 win out those 5 games, 3 draws, and another loss. Then at Forest Green, took over January the 26th this year, left on the 4th of July, obviously. Played 18, won 1, drawn 3, lost 14.
Pretty bad, that, isn't it?
Yeah. What is it about him?
I don't know. He seems to be a good number 2, because obviously you're terrified of him, but I don't know. He just doesn't seem to have the kind of tactical nous needed to fully lead a football team.
I need to find this video quickly. If I can find it in the next 5 seconds, we'll play it on the podcast, because it is absolutely sensational. I'm not going to be able to find it. Basically, it must have been after that 1 win as Forest Green Rovers manager. Someone filmed Duncan Ferguson at the petrol station, and he was raving in his car. I forget what song it was. What song was it?
Was it Pointer Sisters or something?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember what it was.
So.
It was just a song you wouldn't expect Duncan Ferguson to be raving to in his car. Anyway, all the best to Mrs. Dingley. I don't know if you Miss Dingley. I shouldn't say that. Up the Dingleys. All the Dingleys. By the way, you summed up really well there. Judge her on her performance, not who she is. I can't wait to see them go up this season. Imagine that.
Yeah. They'll be dancing on the streets of Forest Green. That's all.
Forest Green Town Centre. Right, now we move on to... I've just realised we've been going over an hour for this news segment. This is going to be a record-breaking podcast, but it has been a busy week. A Daily Mail exclusive has revealed, apparently, the FA Cup faces a radical shake-up that'll see replays and the standalone final weekend axed as the FA prepare to cede control of the tournament to the Premier League in a huge TV deal. It's going to happen, apparently, from the 2024-2025 season. The FA are preparing to hand control of the competition over to the Premier League that would give the top-flight clubs control over the entire domestic calendar. FA Cup replays could be scrapped, which is obviously horrible news for teams down the pyramid. Those are massive money generators, especially if a Forest Green Rovers gets a draw away at Anfield. That's a massive money spinner for them, which should be taken away, which is horrible to see, because I doubt that money will be replaced by the way the football's structured. The early rounds will be moved into midweeks, which I think is also terrible, because FA Cup third round weekend is my highlight of the football season most seasons. I love it. And the final staged on an ordinary Premier League weekend from the 2024-2025 season, and the biggest shake-up in the competition's 152-year history. That is a load of bollocks as well. We want a standalone FA Cup final weekend, so it means something at the end of the year in May, in searing temperatures. That's what it's all about, the FA Cup final.
Yeah, it's clearly one of those where it's been designed, if it all goes through, to help the Premier League teams, and it's just going to make for a boring FA Cup. There's going to be no magic of the cup anymore. We've spoken about ways to alleviate player burnout, but this is not the way. The FA Cup's great. Leave it as it is.
Exactly. But this change is coming around, obviously, because of money. And that money is affecting the Champions League, and that is having a knock-on effect now for the domestic competitions in England, it would seem. The Champions League from 2024 will feature 10 matches in the group stages as they go to that weird league thing, which I still don't fully understand. But we'll see how it tastes when it happens. The FA insists that the tender process for overseas rights remains ongoing, but it is understood that Chief Executive Mark Bullingham is minded to accept the Premier League's offer and their terms, which include the abolition of FA Cup replays, the prospect of early rounds of the competition being played midweek. Disagree. The end of the standalone FA Cup weekend going away, with the showpiece occasion being brought forward to clash with regular Premier League fixtures every year. Don't agree with that. The FA Cup final will be held on the penultimate Saturday of the season, with the full Premier League schedule taking place on the Sunday. I guess that's the best of a horrible situation, if you want to put it that way. A 10-year deal to sell foreign TV rights all overseas markets, and the possibility of subsequently selling domestic rights, which are currently held by the BBC and ITV. That is a horrible move as well, because obviously it's hard enough to watch the Champions League over here without spending your arm and your leg every weekend, without this happening as well. An increased offer payment from the Premier League to the FA to fund grassroots football. That's just like, here's a poo sandwich, but it's garnished with lovely butter. That's a horrible analogy, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Some Walker's sensations on the side.
Yeah.
We're always hearing about that. Oh, there's going to be a payment from the FA and the Premier League to fund grassroots football, but it's usually very tokenistic. It's not ever a life-changing amount of money, is it? I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
It's nonsense, isn't it? I think it'll be the death of the FA Cup, good and proper.
I mean, what else is there to say? There's shake-ups to be done in the game. There's shake-ups to be done of the cup, but this is not the way.
No.
This is not the way at all.
Not at all. And we end the news section, which is going to be over an hour and 10 minutes long this week, I guess. Whoa. Paris Saint-Germain head coach Christophe Galtier has been taken into police custody relating to allegations of discrimination from his time as manager of Nice. He's been accused of racism and Islamophobia during that previous spell as Nice manager. An email supposedly from the former Nice director Julien Fournier, in which concerns were raised about working with the manager due to his attitude and response to the squad's black and Muslim players, was leaked earlier this year. Galtier has denied such allegations, and his lawyer revealed plans to pursue legal actions against the insulting and defamatory remarks following the leak, with the PSG boss receiving emergency protection in the last few months, which is a weird thing to hear, emergency protection like that. But now Galtier has lost his job as PSG manager. Where Satya just got the notification through from Live Scores. They've confirmed to have PSG that Luis Enrique is their new manager, so he's out of work, which makes you think there's maybe something to this, although we can't sit here and obviously speculate about that. It's obviously just not nice to read, is it?
Yeah.
And if it is true, by the way, that's it. He's done. Finished.
Get him off the game.
Yeah.
As he should be. This is the first I'm hearing of this. I knew that he wasn't the most popular figure at PSG itself, but like you're saying, if there's any grain of truth in this, get him off the game.
Get him gone. He could be a contender for Twat of the Week, which is coming up in a couple of segments' time after our highlight of the week. For me, there's only one contender, and I'm just going to play the audio because it's weird. It's weird as balls.
Marhaba, Ana Steven Gerrard. Ana El Etifak. See you soon. Marhaba, Ana Steven.
Steven Gerrard obviously announces the manager of that Saudi Arabian team that we can't really say, otherwise we'll get demonetized because of the last syllable of their name. He's done a little video. First and foremost, in the announcement video itself, because it's Gerrard and his ties to Liverpool Football Club, You Never Walk Alone was used as the backing track of the thing. How did that make you feel?
It's an anthem for several clubs, isn't it? I mean, they've got all the money in the world, haven't they? So they'll license it. It's one of them. It's one of them. But
just in case you haven't seen the clip itself, Gerrard, I don't know what's happened to him since leaving Aston Villa, but it looks like he's had a lot of Botox, a lot of fillers, I think the people in the trade call it. I know you said the lasses there, but fellas get it done as well, don't they? The fillers. But he just doesn't... He looks like an AI-generated version of himself. He's speaking like your dad does on holiday. It's everything you want from this sort of announcement. As weird as it is to say, because he's off to Saudi Arabia and obviously the Saudi Pro League taking over football. That's another big name going over there. It's a funny video. In the same way that I compare it to like Joey Barton when he was at Marseille, Steve McLaren when he was manager of FC 20. Or we go to the Emirates for a draw, you know.
We play good football, Eredivisie.
It's in that same bracket for me, the way he was talking there.
Gerrard's a weird one because we were saying before about him. Is this the end of his managerial career? Him basically putting the final, nail in the coffin. And I'm saying that he's not a charismatic man. And this reminds me of. Do you remember the Pringles advert years ago with Steven Gerrard in it? I
don't know. You have to run me through this.
So when this came out, this was all me and my mates were saying for the whole summer. It must have been one of the World Cup years. But there's Pringles. Oh, there's nothing cooler than Pringles. I do like a Pringle.
Who doesn't?
It's just loads of people just doing loads of kicky-ups with Pringles. Roberto Carlos has got them. And, he's just farting around these Pringles. And he cuts to Steven Gerrard and goes, "Oi, Roberto, pass the Pringles." And he kicks it over to Gerrard, takes it on the chest. And that's all we were saying for about 6 months. "Oi, Roberto, pass the Pringles."
Is there a licensed tune in the background of that advert? I'm going to have to try and find it now.
I can't remember.
Gerrard Pringles advert.
It also reminds me of after the Istanbul final. My cousin used to get the official LFC magazine, and in the next few issues of it, the back page was Steven Gerrard wearing the kits from the previous 4 times he won it, and had him posing with the title. And he's just one of those. He was just smiling with his teeth, but not with his eyes. He looked like he was being held at gunpoint. He was like, "Yeah, there's me again." And it's just like it seems that if he's not playing football or talking about football or battering someone for not playing Phil Collins, he's a very uncomfortable and very stiff man.
I found the clip. Let's have a listen.
Oi, Roberto, pass the Pringles.
That was played at normal speed. It's 100 miles an hour how he's talking.
I don't remember it being that fast.
Roberto, pass the Pringles.
Pass the Pringles. Up the Pringles.
Oi, Roberto, pass the Pringles.
Roberto's buzzing, by the way, that he's got some ready salted Pringles in his hands.
Of course he is. Once you pop, you just can't stop. We're not sponsored by Pringles, but let me say, I will sell out for any amount of money.
A pair of boys can dream, let me tell you. Imagine that, a sponsorship from Pringles. Oh, but anyway, that's my highlight of the week. I think Jack Atkins has not got anything this week, so we'll just say Gerrard looked like a fake AI version of himself. His teeth as well. What's he done to his teeth? That's not a boy from Liverpool, is it?
It looks like it's a boy who's been to Turkey by the looks of things.
But
who's to say? Who's to say?
Obviously, it's just a lovely dentist that he has. I don't know what I'm saying there. From highlight of the week, we go to the twat of the week. It could be Christophe Gaultier, as we just spoke about there, if those allegations prove to be true. But I'm going to bring to the table Richard Keys, because since the last time we recorded this podcast, it's been a double whammy for Richard Keys in the news this week. First and foremost, shamed. This is from, I think it was a report from the Daily Mail. A lovely, upstanding newspaper over here in the UK, saying, shamed former Sky Sports presenter Richard Keys, 66 years of age, marries 35-year-old friend of his daughter in Devon after denying he left his wife for her while she was fighting cancer. The former Sky Sports News presenter, 66, married Lucy Rose, 35, in a 20-grand ceremony attended by family and friends, which did not include his 38-year-old daughter Gemma or son Joshua. He split from Julia Keys after 36 years of marriage, in which the news of his shock relationship emerged in 2016, with his ex revealing how the affair devastated her as she recovered from thyroid cancer and also wrecked the lives of their 2 children. Julia said the affair ruined the career of Hollyoaks actress daughter as she spiraled into alcoholism and depression. Gemma also faced legal action over a string of abusive texts she sent to Lucy before the charges were dropped by prosecutors. So he's going to deny it, but all the pieces oddly fit together.
Yeah, he's not. He doesn't seem a very nice man, Richard Keys.
He's disgusting.
He's horrible, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's classless. He's just an egotistical arsehole. I just get the arrogance of the man.
He's got proper hairy hands too.
He has as well. He's like a Robin Williams level of hair, just without the lovable nature of Robin Williams.
Yeah, everything else that made Robin Williams. That's just they share hairy hands, and that's it.
Yeah,
disgusting.
I mean, it's been a double whammy for Richard Keys, because I've got him for my twat of the week as well, because it was all that stuff. Because when that happened, we were chatting in the work chat last week, and we were just all putting boots into Richard Keys for being a knobhead. Was it today or was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
A screenshot of Fab Romano's Instagram post talking about Steven Gerrard, but he shared the screenshot but forgot to crop it. And it had pictures at the bottom that he'd been sharing.
So I think it was the last 10 things that himself and Andy Gray would have shared together was at the bottom of this thing. So that caused Twitter to try and work out exactly what those pictures were. And someone recognised a meme, and it was a meme with the joke caption, "Congratulations to my nephew on his graduation." That's him on the left. And that's the caption, because the nephew's sort of blurred out in the background, and in the foreground is this busty lady.
Yeah, and it was just another grubby Yada moment from Richard Keys, and I think there was another post with it that was like a little bit transphobic as well. And it was just, he's just an arsehole. He's just an arsehole.
But he'll still appear on that Dubai channel. Is it Bein Sports, where him and Andy Gray live now, where he just come out with horrible takes that, what's Nagelsmann got that Frank Lampard doesn't have?
He's terrible. I don't understand why anyone would hire him. No one likes him. No one respects him. And his takes are terrible.
Yeah.
A bit like me. So.
Hey, whose daughter are you going to take than Jack Atkins? That's the question now.
Oh, who knows?
That's a weird question to ask someone.
Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah.
The mailbag. It's time for the mailbag. The Roberto mailbag here, everybody. The onion bag. I don't know what we're calling this segment officially yet, but those are the two options we have so far. Ross@holdengift.com if you want to get in contact. Eddie, how's it going, lads? I like the pun straight away. As an Aussie and a lifelong Hammer family, played for reserves in the 80s. Can we have a name, please? I have conflicting emotion about Ange at Spurs, especially seeing the manager turnover in football for the last 15 years. Will he be given the chance to succeed? I'm not sure he will. Aussies know Ange is class and underappreciated. I want the man to be successful. I was there when we beat South Korea with Son Heung-min up front in the 2015 Asian Cup final, and the football he had the national team playing then and at the following World Cup was a joy. He's done it his way in multiple countries and leagues, so I hope his story turns out more like Wenger did when he came from Japan, and less like De Boer from Ajax and Inter. Two questions, and so I've not forgotten my glasses again, so I'm a bit like I can't quite see. Do you think he'll get the time to get them ticking? Maybe Spurs know they need a rebuild helps this. I would agree with that. I think he's going to be given at least 2 seasons.
You'd hope, like you're saying, that they've already signed James Maddison, which is not a full statement of intent, but a statement that they are taking a kind of rebuild seriously. It all depends, like everything with Spurs, I think, on Harry Kane.
Yeah.
If Harry Kane stays and, is buoyed enough that he's still going to, not that he won't play for them, if you know what I mean, but if he's still going to give it his all, or if he does go, if they give him the means or the money to effectively replace him, it all hinges on Kane for me.
Yeah, and I just think you look at what happened with Mourinho and Conte. They know now that the big names don't work at Spurs. So this is like a not as big name, so maybe they'll just give him more of a crack at the whip. But then again, maybe that could work against him because he's got no real reputation in England. Obviously, we know what he did with the Australian national team. We know what he did with Celtic, with obviously Rangers up there, which makes his accomplishments a little bit more impressive than Brent Dogs for me. But maybe that could count against him. I just think they need to give him time. You look at there'll be a Spurs fan listening who hates me for saying this, but look at Arsenal with Arteta. Look what happened there. He was wanted out by, you'd have to say, 60-70% of the Arsenal fan base, it felt like at the time, because they sort of dropped back down to where they were under the latter days of Wenger and Emery. But he's given them time, they've invested in the right places, and look where they are now, challenging for the league.
And I mean, this is going to be doing a huge favour to Postecoglou, and I don't mean it in this way, but like Ferguson, his first few years at United was really kind of flattering to deceive, wasn't he? And he wasn't really achieving much, and then became obviously Alex Ferguson. So, are you saying then that Postecoglou could be the next Martin Jol?
Yes.
Yeah.
The next Harry Redknapp.
Yeah.
And the second part of the question is, who is your underappreciated gem/hero for your club or country? Up the wazoo, and that's from Clip. Up the Clip.
I'm going to go for country, a player that I really liked. Owen Hargreaves. I always liked Owen Hargreaves for England.
And his career cut short by injury, didn't he, really? At the top level.
He was like the new Darren Anderton in that respect. But what World Cup was it?
6 it would have been.
6, yeah. And he was immense. Did he get his move to United after that World Cup?
I think so, yeah.
But he was fantastic. He was one of these that you always heard of because, as a kid, you'd be like, recognise him. Ooh, Bayern Munich. And, you hear bits and bobs. But, yeah, I was always a big fan of Owen Hargreaves. I was gutted when he went to United, but, it wasn't the most fruitful run for him.
Nah, Andros Townsend.
Yeah.
When I was an England fan travelling around Europe watching England play, Andros Townsend was one of England's main men. I remember him twatting one in on his debut and off the post at Wembley. I was there in Turin at Juventus's ground under the Alps. It was a beautiful setting watching Andros Townsend get the equaliser, I think in a 1-1 draw away for Italy. I'm sat here now having not prepared for this question, and Andros Townsend is the name that's coming to the top of my head at the moment.
You've got to go with your heart sometimes, haven't you?
Yeah. There must be a better example than that. Darius Vassell, I always question how he got the way he got to in the England team. Sven loved Darius Vassell.
Oh, God, yeah.
He was bang average in the Premier League, I thought.
First name on the team sheet, Darius Vassell.
Underappreciated England players. Oh, should we go for a club now? Can you think of one for Liverpool?
Oh, I don't know, because we've got lots of cult heroes. Obviously, we had Divock Origi recently and things like that. So we like to get behind players. I'd possibly say Lucas Leiva. He turned it around in the end and won the club over, but at first we hated him. It was a bit like Joe Linton at Newcastle.
Yeah.
Couldn't stand him. And then when we dropped him back a bit and played him in midfield, yeah, everyone was just like, oh, been a bit harsh on Lucas there. Yeah,
the current Newcastle squad, it's Sean Longstaff. He's just, when he's not there, the knock-on effect it has for different players in that Newcastle team, it's amazing to see how big of a hole he does leave when he's not there, because it doesn't feel like he's doing a lot when he is there. He's obviously leading the press and whatnot, but when he goes missing, Joe Linton and Bruno are not the same players. But you go back through time, it must be about 10 years to the day since we sold James Perch to Wigan for 750 grand. He was like the second coming of Claude Makelele. It was fantastic. I loved James Perch, watched him smash people. You go further back afield, underappreciated for Newcastle. Let's go one this decade, then one from the noughties and one from the 90s, and then I think that's the end of the discussion. So this decade for me, I'm going to put my thing on Sean Longstaff for Newcastle.
Yeah, this decade for me, weirdly, Gini Wijnaldum.
Whoa, he got all the big goals.
He did, but he
got all the big goals.
He was so underappreciated. There's people who was basically driving him out the club because, as I was saying before, he's one of those that when he did his job well, you didn't notice him. So people were just like, he's stealing, living here, Wijnaldum. And it's taken us the best part of 5-6 transfer windows to actually replace him. I'd say Gini Wijnaldum, very underappreciated, especially after he left, and we were like, kind of didn't know what we had until he was gone.
So then, the noughties. I'm going Aaron Hughes straight away for Newcastle. When I was growing up, that Newcastle team that got into the Champions League was shocking. Defensively shocking. But Aaron Hughes, he could play centre-back, he could play left-back when he needed him to. He was primarily the right-back when I was getting into football. Like, I could name that Newcastle team off the back of my hand straight away. Given in goal, although Bobby Robson flip-flopped with him and Harper for a while. But given in goal, Hughes, O'Brien, or Dabby's Bramble or Stephen Caldwell, Bernard at left back, Robert left midfield, Speed, Jenis Adaya, then he had Solana on the right, Bellamy Shearer, Amiobi in the reserves, Luar floating around as well. But Aaron Hughes was amazing, and when we sold him to Fulham, it's one of those ones where you don't know what you got till it's gone, and he is that man, Mr. Hughes. I was trying to think of a punny name, I couldn't think of one.
The fire in your eyes then was genuinely nice to see.
I love Aaron Hughes.
The one that's coming to mind again is just Jimmy Traore. He wasn't undervalued really because he wasn't even very good. I think it was just the fact that we had a song that told him how crap he was. And it's just
what was it? Please run me through this song.
Oh God. Now, it was to the tune of "Blame It on the Boogie" by the Jackson 5. And it was, don't blame it on Gerrard. Don't blame it on Alonso. Don't blame it on...
Bishkan.
Yeah, blame it on Traore. He just can't control his feet. And so
did that come off the back of that own goal at Burnley?
It was just, a series of diminishing returns for Jimmy Traore. But he's kind of remembered fondly now for being a bit rubbish.
Was he the one that went off at half-time in the Champions League final or came on?
I
think he went off, didn't he?
Yeah.
Aye. Anyway, shocking player.
One of the greatest nights in my life, and it's don't get old, Ross. Don't get old.
I know. We're all going to. They're all going to die. And for the 90s, he's a known name, but the one that's coming out on top of my mind is Peter Beardsley. I don't think the work he did for Newcastle gets appreciated as it should do. My God. Obviously, his second spell at the club, not the first one, after he'd been to Liverpool and Man United and other places around the world of football. Vancouver, I think he went to as well. But what he did in those early Premier League seasons, like when Newcastle, for those who aren't aware, got promoted from the Championship the first season the Premier League was a thing, then after getting promotion, finished third and never gets talked about, ever. And Peter Beardsley was up front with Andy Cole for that, just causing havoc. It was amazing to see.
I know, it's one of those things with Beardsley as well. Even when you look at him in his prime, you're just like, he must be about 45 there. Underappreciated.
There's going to be a name come here which is going to make me go ruffle on the floor. Because Liverpool in the 90s was a weird, eclectic mix, wasn't it?
We were very weird, and you'd have people like Julian Dix turned up, I think, for like about 10 minutes. And obviously, I remember meeting a little kid once on a train going to Blackpool with my parents in about 1996, and this little kid was about 4 and was obsessed with Neil Ruddock. One who doesn't seem to really get the love now, and this is going to sound weird, Jamie Redknapp. Again, blighted by injuries, but he was Liverpool captain. He did win some silverware, but you think of the kind of transitional years, and you're thinking of McManaman, you're thinking of Fowler, you may even be thinking of Dominic Matteo and people like that. And Redknapp doesn't really get fondly remembered, I'd say.
His punditry career's probably got a massive part to do with that. The bland bitch.
Yeah, he's a bit of a boring sod, isn't he? But yeah, if you gave me more time to think of it, get me on the omega-3s, get me some blueberries and stuff to get the cogs going. But just off the top of my head, they're the three that jump out at me.
So let us know in the comments down below who are the underappreciated players for your national teams and your club teams as well. Hi lads, wasn't sure if you'd been asked about or had mentioned your favourite goals of all time, so I thought I'd ask. I thought I'd add a little bit of spice and make it a two-pronged question. Firstly, what's your personal favourite goal of all time? I'll go in there straight away. It's Philippe Albert, or as Martin Tyler said, it's Philippe Albert. Oh! Absolutely glorious in the rain as he slides on his back. It's a centre forward from Belgium carrying the ball forward, seeing what many people thought was the greatest goalkeeper in the world at the time off his line, and this centre back chipping him from the edge of the box straight over his head. He didn't even move. That's what Newcastle were in the 90s.
For me, it's someone who's absolutely dominated this podcast. It's Gerrard in the Gerrard final. West Ham absolutely smashing it in from about 4 miles away. As soon as the announcement had been made for the extra time, and he just stood up and could there have been a more perfect strike in the more crucial moments in a final? It's all the elements you put it at play. Oh, beautiful.
The mantle had been taken by Paul Konchesky, but then Gerrard ruined it for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Paul Konchesky, one of the most hated players in Liverpool history, because his mum complained about how much he hated Scousers while he was part of Roy Hodgson's Liverpool rebuild.
Did she really? Bloody hell.
Yeah. Because he wasn't. We signed Konchesky and he's not great. And yeah, I think she put on Facebook something like going in on the Liverpool fans, and his fate was sealed. But yeah, he scored he didn't mean that goal, I don't think at all.
Obviously, I was pulling your pisser there, Jack Atkins.
No, but I'm just. I'm a nice man. I try and see the pot. No, I don't try and see the positives. I'm a negative, miserable old game. Gerrard final.
And the second part of this two-pronged attack question, and spicily, what's a goal you think is underrated / underappreciated / not seen enough? My favourite goal, this is the emailer talking, my favourite goal is Tim Cahill's weak foot volley against Netherlands in the 2014 World Cup, as I have fond memories as an Aussie going berserk watching it in a pub at 3 a.m. with a bunch of randoms. One guy celebrated so wildly, he fist-pumped and spun around at the same time, which resulted in him accidentally uppercutting someone. My underappreciated goal is Fabio Quilagria, I think I've said that right, from a few years back, which was nominated for the Pushkas Award, but I believe was robbed. It's through his legs backheel volley, which is absolutely superb. Superb. And I forgot to write down the name of who sent that in, so while you're talking about yours for that category, I'll find his name.
Ooh, let me think. I'm not too sure. I always liked Van Bronckhorst Was it Van Bronckhorst? Yeah, Van Bronckhorst, that World Cup 2010.
Thunder bastard from miles out, yeah.
With the Jabalani, because you like to see him, don't you? I don't know. I don't really know. Because it seems to be goals like that you don't really think of, if you know what I mean. I'm tripping over my words here.
I'll tell you what.
In my head, I've got a Rolodex of like goals going, but they're all goals that I love and rewatch over and over again. Because I'm just thinking, Roberto Carlos against France. It's like, no, that's very simple.
Everyone knows that one, don't they?
Exactly, that's what I'm going on about. It's one of those. Yeah,
I don't know if my choice has been hampered by lockdown, because it was a lockdown goal. It's that Eric Lamela one at Arsenal. Ruined by lockdown because there's no fans there to enjoy it, and also ruined by Martin Tyler's commentary. I think if you put an iconic bit of commentary on top of that Lamela goal, which I think won the Puskás Award, it was the one where he did the Rabona through the defender's leg and it went in the far corner. It was, if you put an iconic bit of commentary and a good crowd on top of that, I think it's one of the greatest goals of all time.
Oh, yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, so that's from Jack in Newcastle, Australia, by the way, so thank you, Jack. And sorry for not writing your name down.
up the silver chair. There we go.
Up the silver chair, indeed. Up the hold and give, the third email starts. All right, Mr. Hold and Mr. Give. Again, which one's which? That's up to you.
I'll hold this week.
Ding dong. Like Paul Gascoigne. If you were listening to last week's podcast, you know exactly what we're talking about. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the next season. With City losing Gundogan on a free and potentially losing Bernardo Silva to the Saudi League, and the rumours being that they are going to replace them with more holding players, do you think that they are a shoo-in to win the league again, or whether another team will give them a proper challenge? Thanks for all the fantastic content from Elliot in Cheshire, who is he's an avid Liverpool fan.
Good man.
Disgusting.
Well, seeing as it seems like City are about to sign Gvardiol, I think they're going to win it again, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because as weird as it sounds, the first third of last season, I was like, City look a bit rubbish here. This could be anyone's for the taking. And then they City'd it and steamrolled it again. Well, steamrolling's a bit unfair to Arsenal. But if they get Gvardiol on, and like you're saying, if they go for more holding, kind of more stable midfield presence, and then just have that robot Haaland up front scoring 90 goals. Yeah, I think City's again, unfortunately.
They've got to have another iron in the fire in terms of an attacking player, though, surely. Because as we were saying last week, and as the email says, they're replacing the likes of Silva and who else is left? Oh my God, Gundogan with. I mean, they were in for Rice, weren't they? But that's not going to happen now. But that's that sort of player who isn't, and obviously Kovacic from Chelsea, not attacking players. You got to think they're going to subsequent those goals being like taken away from them with an attacking player. Is the cat there? Up the cat.
He's just there licking his bum off.
Oh,
hey mate.
That YouTube might demonetize that to see that.
Oh, they won't see anything. But yeah, it's City, isn't it? They could just decide tomorrow who they wanted, and they can go in and make a big bid for him. I'm trying to think who could move, because Chelsea, I think, are going to have to shift some more players, aren't they? So even if they just went and got some of Chelsea's lesser players, they just kind of bulk out their squad. I think Real Madrid, if they want to get some more money for an eventual move for Mbappé, they might have to sell some of the big movers as well. So yeah, like you said, City have still got moves to make in this window.
Yeah, but I still think they're far and away the favourites. And Arsenal's improvements to their squad so far this summer has been fantastic. But I still think there's a little bit more for them to do, and maybe a little drop off from City as well for them to get closer than they were that season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the eternal optimist in me is thinking that this new look Liverpool might be up in the conversation again.
That might be a bit like City last season, though, looking for letting Haaland settle down a bit, because I think that's what the main issue was, wasn't it? Just letting Haaland sort of settle in. I know he was scoring all the goals, but it felt like everyone behind him was a bit like, we're not sure where to go. Then De Bruyne worked out where to put the ball exactly, and they went and won the league, so maybe it could be like that. But anyway, thank you for the questions this week. It's ross@holdandgive.com if you want to get involved. We end, as always, with the big question, as Jack looks like he's about to fall asleep. It's been such a long podcast. We'll asked the question, why has Mason Mount left Chelsea for Manchester United? A crucial part of his statement, which many people have picked up on, said the following: I feel he deserved more than just a written statement, as I said, so we'll just read out a written statement, that'll be better. So I want to tell you directly how grateful I've been for all your support over the last 18 years. And I know that some of you won't be happy with my decision, but it's what is right for me at this moment in my career, as we see a cat named what?
This is Louis.
Louis. Hello, Louis.
Yeah. Hi, Ross.
Hello, Louis. Mason Mount is saying this is the right thing for him to do at this moment in his career. We're asking the question, why? I'm asking the question, could it be something to do with the contract negotiations that went on for absolutely ages, but then ultimately went absolutely nowhere? Maybe telling Mason Mount that they don't want him as much as someone like Manchester United clearly want him.
I think it's probably a bit of that, and like we said, there's a fire sale at Chelsea, aren't they? Isn't there? So while I think they would have wanted to keep him, if they're seeing an out there, recoup some money, get rid of some players at the same time, I think it's not a blessing in disguise, but for the actual structure of Chelsea, it's a problem that they haven't got anymore. Yeah. I'm not saying he was a problem, but just because of the way the club's been ran since Bowley's come in, they've got to get rid of players. I know some of the Chelsea fans had, well, the vocal minority online had turned on him last season when things weren't going great. But I don't know, it feels like this is a good move for United, a good move for Mason Mount. Whether it's good for Chelsea remains to be seen.
Yeah, one thing I found in my little bit of research for this is apparently towards the end of last year, like the end of the calendar year for 2022, he had agreed a new contract with Chelsea, but on a lot less than the 200 to 250,000 he's apparently getting at Manchester United now. But Chelsea retracted the deal, which I think if that happened to me, I know what I'd be thinking. I'd be thinking, well, you don't want me that much, do you? Because see you later.
Yeah, exactly.
On top of that as well, apparently, while Mason Mount was, from the day he made his debut for Chelsea, he's made the most appearances in that period of time over the last 4 years, whatever it was, and scored the most goals, yet he remained one of the lowest earners in the squad. So if you put it on sort of, I know football's not that, maybe he needs a better agent, I don't know. It certainly seems that way. But then again, he's on 200 grand now, being Mason Mount, so maybe he doesn't need a better agent. Maybe the agent just didn't like Chelsea. But when you put all that together, I think he's done the right thing for him to get away from Chelsea because they just didn't show that they wanted to keep him.
Because from the outside looking in, Chelsea seems very turbulent. I know Man United's probably not much better with the protracted ongoing potential sale and the Glazers and the protests and stuff, but Chelsea seems like it's going to take a while for it to settle down off the field anyway. So perhaps he was looking at it and thinking, do you know what? It's a good time to go because I don't know if this is going to get easier for him.
Yeah,
I think's the way I'm going to put it.
And if you're looking at it from a totally football decision, you think that where Man United finished last season and where Chelsea finished last season has got to have a bit of a bearing as well. Chelsea obviously getting a new manager surely can't be any worse and will be closer to the top four, if not in the top four, under Pochettino. But just the way that Ten Hag, it feels like the way Ten Hag works his players might be suit Mason Mount down to the ground, I should say.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, no matter how up and down Man United's fortunes have been on the pitch, they're still Man United, aren't they? So if you're any prominent player in Man United are interested, your head's probably going to get turned. Even if you are at Chelsea, you can't underestimate the pull of some of these clubs.
Yeah, up the polls.
Up the polls.
Up the polls, indeed. That is it for episode 7 of the Hold and Give Football podcast. I will now allow Jack Atkins to go and tend to Louis and all of his needs and desires. Up the Louis.
Yeah, up the Louis.
That's a very fluffy cat.
He's a pain in the bottom.
Where's the other cat?
She's probably downstairs just chilling out because she's not a little diva.
Oh, so that's the jealous cat, not the other one.
Yeah.
There we go then. There was always a jealous, wasn't there?
She's the boss, and he's a little weedy boy who's just pulled a big thread out of my shirt.
Oh.
So that's good. Thanks, Louis.
Cheers, Louis. And thank you for listening and or watching. We'll be back next week at the same time.
Just chaos, isn't it? It's chaos every time we get on a call.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
That was a cat meowing. That's a time to go. Goodbye, everybody. Dilly ding, dilly dong. I don't know why I like saying that, but there we go.